Welcome to the YoggNation, the Spirit of Gratitude podcast on the Integration platform. Hello, friends. My name is Yogesh Patel, and this podcast focuses on bullying, self-awareness, and our inner spirit, inviting high-profile guests to share their experiences on these relevant topics. And my next guest has turned survival into storytelling and activism into art. Bill Carter is a fearless filmmaker and award-winning author who has risked his life daily to deliver food, water, medicine to those trapped in the war-torn city of Sarajevo during its brutal siege back in the 1990s, for those that remember. Amidst the chaos, he documented the harrowing reality and bravery of civilians and of himself, dodging sniper fire in his memoir, Fools Rush In, which has now been turned into a full-length feature documentary produced by Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, with interviews from Bono and The Edge from U2, President Bill Clinton, and Bill himself. You can catch it on Paramount Plus as it's currently streaming on that platform. With gratitude, welcome to the podcast, Bill.
Thanks for having me on here. It's great. Nice to be here.
Absolutely. So I'm just curious to find out, Bill, what was the exact count of how many times you dodged sniper fire, grenades, shellings during your time?
Oh, well, that would be an impossible number to estimate. I mean, the truth is, at that time in 1993, 94, in 95, there was a few times of, let's call it peace, not peace, but quiet. But otherwise, it was a daily thing. I mean, there's a saying in Syria where your life's lasting 3-4 minutes, depends on who you are and where you are. But so
wait, one more time?
Yeah, your life is, there's no, in a place like Sarajevo that's trapped, surrounded for 4 years, no electricity, no gas, no water, at least like constant supply. You had to kind of figure this out. There's no past. The past is gone. They wiped it out. It's been wiped out. There's no future because the future is 3 minutes and you're going to die. Because wherever you are, the moment you leave that place, you're susceptible to a sniper or a grenade. So you only have the present. So how many times I personally survived a sniper or a bomb or a shrapnel, I cannot count. I can kind of count how many times my Bosnian friends, think I died in cat lives because they told me, which is 8, which we all know we only have 9. So, I'm kind of hanging on by a thread.
Well, I happen to believe that it was your survival instincts that kept you alive.
That is true. But it's kind of a mixed bag. I think you're kind of alluding to something, my past, but
that too, yes.
That's difficult to explain about war. And it's hard for me to really figure it all out. But when I arrived, because of my past, because of what happened to me in losing Karina, who was the love of my life at that time, I entered Syria was a very fearless and wounded human being. Fearless meaning dying wasn't something I was really afraid of. I wasn't looking for it.
Why weren't you afraid? Is it because it was an everyday thing that your body chemistry got used to?
No, I wasn't afraid of dying if dying was something that might... I was very in a metaphysical place with trying to find out where I could find Karina in the heavens or wherever that person might exist in the other plane. And so dying wasn't really... I mean, I always had a primal fear of dying. You can't avoid that. But it wasn't intellectual. It was... so what I'm trying to get at is if I were to run across the street, which is a known sniper street, I was just going to go for it. I wasn't... I was scared. There's a primal part of you that kicks in. But you're going to breathe heavy. You're going to freak out. But I was going to do it because the other side of that street where I'd been friends, I needed to keep living. It was part of my own existence. I needed to keep living on a minute by minute basis. So, My survival skills were a little bit of fearlessness and a very, very large desire to figure out how to keep living. And here's the thing: the Bosnians, that's a place where you want to get out of. Like it's not a, when I got, you want to leave if you're sane. And I did want to leave. After about 3 weeks, I wanted to leave. 2 to 3 weeks, I was like, I'm leaving this. You're just watching people die. And what happened is I met people. When you deliver food, you're kind of a little bit, you pass it on and then you move on, right? You're passing it and you move on. There's emotions there, there's empathy, but it's almost worse. Meeting people, like they invite you to their home, which is down a cave and down a tunnel. And when you meet people, that's when I was deeply in trouble because I was falling kind of in love with people. And then you can't leave because it's like, how do you leave people that you think you might have just a smidget of chance of helping a little bit the next day? How do you leave? It's you know it's impossible unless you're going to go do something outside to bring more in or to figure out more. So I got really involved with a lot of people that were very inspiring, not because they did anything magical. They weren't doing anything magical, but they were together with their families. They were laughing. They were telling me stories. They were like picking spring onions out of.
Amidst all this chaos and war and death.
Yeah, I mean, totally. I mean, we're being shot at in the room we're talking to, but they'd laugh, and then we cut up a spring onion and eat it for food, and then I just did it for 6 hours, and I go back to where I was sleeping, which is on a burned out floor, on the 7th floor of this big burned out building, and I just started to meet more and more of these people, and then I started going to underground discos, and then it really, really took off. I exploded in me, like this art and this culture was thriving. It wasn't like minimal. It was thriving in the underground world. Yeah, underground, like literally you going down like through stairs, and that is where I realized, okay, delivering food is important, but what these people really want you to know, and no one knows, is that they are incredibly sophisticated, intelligent, artistic human beings who, and the most important thing about war to keep you alive is humor. And they had a great sense of humor. And, but if you watch the news, you didn't see any of those people. You never saw those people. You saw
You
dads.
mentioned dark humor, right? As a form of comedy.
Very dark humor. Yes, very dark humor. And which is great. I mean, so that was something that I started to really become enamored with, caught up with. I started being involved with those artists because it was the most alive place I'd ever been. And that sounds insane, but it was really like the most alive place I'd ever encountered. And by the time I'd backpacked around the world as a young guy and worked here and worked there, and I've never been to a place like that where you wouldn't expect to find it. And it was just overwhelming.
So I'm curious. Again, a lot of this podcast is about gratitude. How did people express gratitude? I'm not sure if it's an awkward question to ask, but the characters that you write, like is it Shiba, Alma, Layla, Selma, Vlado. I mean, how do these people that you came to know, and I believe they're now friends of yours, how do they express gratitude?
Yeah, that is an awkward question. Because I think the word is weird because
Better yet, what could we learn from them?
yeah, it's kind of like what you learn from them is grace. Because I mean, yes, they're grateful they're alive another day, and they're grateful their mom and dads are alive. You know, there's that, right? And if they have food, they're grateful. That's all built into the human experience. But they're really I don't know if grateful is the right word, but they have a lot of grace to go through this life and still find ways not to be bitter and not to be divisive. The whole war was about dividing them, and they were like, "We're not doing that. We're not doing that." And that's a powerful thing inside of a human culture to say we're not going to give into this. And so, my neighbor's a Muslim.
Amongst these three ethnicity groups, right?
Yeah, like my neighbor's a Muslim. My other neighbor's a Serb. That couple's married. One's a Croat, one's a Muslim. What are we supposed to do? Hate them and hate not? Nobody knew. It didn't make sense to them in any fashion. It was intellectually impossible for them to grasp what the National Serbs wanted them to do. So that's why they got kind of caught off guard, because to them, this was like, you got to be, what are you talking about? This is crazy. And by the time they were figuring out that it wasn't crazy, they were already entrapped. They were already circled. And, but they kept that spirit alive. They kept that idea that living together and laughing with each other and not caring about your last name. And that to me is, it takes a lot of courage.
Courage, and I would also imagine there's also a lot of dignity too.
Dignity. And there's a fun part of that too, right? There's a fun part, which is people did their best to always dress up for whatever that, let's say the occasion is having tea. They'd make sure that they dressed up as much as they could for that moment. There's the famous beauty contest that is in my film, Miss Sarajevo, and also in Kiss the Future. And, that was a moment where celebrating beauty, like in a common, almost in a strange or surreal way, as you can't take away our dignity. We're still going to maintain this, even though you're going to try to kill us. So I guess that maybe I don't know if that's really the answer, but
it does provide a framework. And again, just for those that are listening, it's again having these diverse perspectives and guests that come on that share their stories of adversity, both personal, direct and indirect. So I'm curious, Bill, how do you honor their legacy? I mean, through the book, through the memoirs, through the other books that you've produced, but is there a way that you have personally honored them?
Well, I hope I do it all the time, and both in what I've written and what I've filmed and what I've been part of with this latest film, and then friendships. I take friendships very seriously with all my friends, but with the Bosnians, and it's very deep. It's not like a lot of my friends. Like I don't have to see them for 10 years. It wouldn't matter. As soon as I saw each other, we'd be off running in our own ways, So
grabbing a drink, right?
Whatever, whatever we're gonna do. So it would be instant. It's instant. So my honoring them is, for a long time I never stopped. Let's throw a concert. Let's throw a fundraiser. I was just endless. And then I got that can wear a person out too.
I guess it's the legacy, right? That carries on.
Right. So I had to kind of stop doing that all the time and kind of, regain my own life. But I think I've honored these friendships. I hope,
So I'm curious, how did Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, I guess, what did they see in your memoir that they decided to make this into a full-length feature documentary?
Well, it's a bit of a process, Hollywood. So there's a director who knew them, and he called me and he kind of said, "Hey, I think this might be a film." And then we started working on it, and flesh out a lot of stuff, kind of some of the stories that aren't in the book. So it was a process, and I think a lot of this has to have, there's a little bit of timing here. This all kind of started to come together in March of 2021. So if you put your mind into what that means, it's about, yes, but it's 2 months after January 6th. So, and January 6th is January 6th is a moment that if you have been in other countries, like I've been in several countries that have these moments, if you want to call it that, January 6th is very recognizable to me as part of a playbook. It isn't casual. There's nothing going on there that's like, it's part of an authoritarian thing. So them, others. There's a lot of that going on. That kind of stuff is the language of these movements that have turned into authoritarian movements. So it was like, man, America is an incredible place because it has so many people in it that are different. That's what makes us actually unique in the world. Because you know what? There's a lot of places that have more people than us, but they're not quite as diverse, and we are. And that means you can have a lot of opinions. Okay, that's part of the package. But when you allow something like January 6th to happen, and then also try to erase it, you are playing in a different field right now than we're used to. And in America, we have become extremely comfortable and lazy with like, oh, this stuff's always here for us. It's always here. We're good. Newsflash. There's a lot of other countries in the world that have thought that, and they don't have their countries anymore in the way that they thought. So that was the impetus to get the movie going, because we didn't want to talk about that topic in the movie at all. But what was important is to show what other people did during that kind of time and that kind of hard pressure on them. And what did they do? They leaned into art, culture, music, and stayed themselves. They stayed together. That's how it came about.
I thought that perhaps there may have been somewhat of a forwarded connection with what's happening in the Middle East.
No, we wouldn't have seen that. That's too early. We started this earlier. Yeah. As a matter of fact, when we went to go film the Bosnians in the movie, which are a lot of them are in my book, we were ready to go, and Ukraine started. So we had to stop because no one really knew. If Ukraine would have been more of a lightning storm by Russians, then the Balkans were totally in trouble. So we're like, we can't go there because no one wants to do this right now. So anyways, moving on, but there are similarities in any conflict to what we're talking about, especially in what people do to survive.
And how do they survive?
Literally, besides food and water, which you're going to have, that's that's the basic. But they do it through these. I guarantee you, it doesn't really matter what conflict you picked. It really doesn't matter. You could pick Ukraine. You could go to Gaza. You can go to some place in the corner of Tibet that you don't know about that's being totally terrorized. They're going to have a thing that they're hanging on to. This is why I run around this country and this world talking about this. Art is treated by most governments, at least ours, as a luxury good. It's the first line item that gets cut in a budget. It's the first thing the schools can't deal with anymore. And meaning budget-wise. And art, if you're in a place where everybody's taking everything away from you, that is all you have. Think about it. You lose someone. Your wife dies tomorrow. Your daughter dies tomorrow. What are you going to do? Besides going into grief, you're going to find a poem. You're going to find a song that enters your life. And for a moment, you feel you again. You feel maybe even them again. Art is what makes us human. And we forget this. We forget it because we can also kind of dabble around the edges of it and get a job and do this and drive our kids to work and whatever. Art is what makes you unique as you, meaning each of us. It doesn't mean you have to be a painter. You don't have to be like, a conductor. You just have to be you have to be a person who appreciates art, understands it, feels it. And again, not as a luxury good, but as a human.
Is this more your inner spirit speaking or the self-awareness?
I think it's both. And again, people think it's kind of goofy, but just take a little journey to the conflicts of life. I can guarantee you, literally everything I have in life, I'll bet you that if you go to a place in Gaza, or if you go to a place wherever you go, there's kids playing. There's people making music. And it's not like something they're doing for me or you or anybody else. They're just doing it for them because now they remind themselves they're not just people that are being preyed upon or bombed or whatever it is, they're actually still alive. That is the fundamental purpose of art.
I'm just trying to think, juxtapose the society we live in today where social media and technology is so prevalent that any problem that we complain about, it's more of a first world problem as opposed to what these people are enduring on a daily basis.
I mean, the movie that most parallels this concept that's been made recently is in a dramatic way, and also on the heels of last weekend, is Life is Beautiful. Roberto Benigni. Okay, remember he's the father and he has a child with him, and they go into Auschwitz. And the father decides he's just going to make it a game. The whole thing's going to be a game. It's almost like a play.
Didn't that win the Academy Award?
Yeah, it did win the Academy Award, and the child he keeps his innocence the whole time. That's kind of what I'm talking. That's what we're talking about here. Is a little bit of that spirit in us.
Well, it looks like it. Not only the spirit, but in many ways, it has transformed you as well.
Definitely. I mean, my past is not. It has its hardships, and you have to find your way through all those things, and keep having to find a way to keep going. And I think art for me has been I didn't take art in college, and no one taught me anything. I just have done it.
Well, on a more funner topic related to the book, but perhaps to go back even a few years, is you forged an unlikely alliance with the band U2, orchestrating groundbreaking satellite link-ups of their concerts that gave Sarajevo a voice on the world stage. And for the citizens of YoggNation, who I like to call, Bill's efforts ultimately led him for the creation of Miss Sarajevo, the powerful film that was produced by the band. So curious, Bill, how did you manifest this?
Yeah, it's really interesting. At the time, I remember when I was doing all this, I had that other thing that was part of my life, the grief in my life. When I saw U2 on television talking about Sarajevo one time on MTV, when I was in Bosnia at the TV station, I just said, "Hey, you know what? I bet if I reach out to them, they're going to do something. They just feel like those kind of people. They're Irish. They know what it means to be picked on. They know what a bully is. I mean, Ireland is the kicking stone of England for like hundreds of years. So they know what a bully is, and they hate a bully. And they know what sectarianism, they know what religion being used as a weapon of war means. So I just thought, and their music's always been so, it's love, so
It's a beautiful day.
yeah. So I wanted to reach out, and there's a whole, if you watch Kiss the Future, there's a whole journey in there and it's in the book, but it's an incredibly difficult process to try to get this out to them, because we're in a place that's very cut off from the world. There's no electricity. And so there's no smartphones. There's nothing, right? So I got it to them, and they responded, and I finally got in a room with Bono, and that interview is in the Kiss the Future, the raw interview. It's great. And I think I kind of like to say it's the worst interview on the planet. It's literally it's like what not to do in an interview, but it is an amazing conversation, because I was not there as a journalist. I was not there to interview him about like anything. I was there to talk to him. And once it became a conversation, then the audience of the movie is just riveted, because it's like they're just talking about what could they do? What are they cooking up? And the satellite started, 2 weeks later.
Only 2 weeks later, that quick.
Yeah, it's about 2 weeks, maybe. We did a phone call. The first one was a phone call. Then we went to satellite. Then we went to video probably like another 5 days after that. And then we were on the whole summer. And those were very hard to do because of the getting people to the TV station is incredibly dangerous. checkpoints and after 10 o'clock, and it's very hard to get people to the TV station, which is outside of town.
And I remember you writing about your antagonist, Darcy. So maybe maybe you can shed some light as to who this person was. And the reason why I bring this up is because, again, a lot of what this podcast aims to serve is trying to find messaging that can help a person overcome a challenge or overcome adversity in life. And that's mainly caused by external factors related to other people giving you that adversity, giving you that challenge. And so, for the person that's listening to the quiet corner of the room, could you explain who Darcy was, the character, and how did you deal with that type of person in life? Because that also gets into bullying and cyberbullying, but that's maybe just a different topic. But just wanted to shed some light there.
No, it's a good question. And there's a lot of Darcys in the world, and Darcy's not a real name, by the way. I changed that just for the sake of. She ran she was the boss of the technology to do the satellites. These kind of companies are all over the world during conflicts, and if you want to do a satellite, you have to go through them. It's very expensive, and she just wouldn't do it. And mostly because I had really long hair and I had no affiliation with anybody. And here I was walking into a room saying, U2, the biggest band in the world, wants to do a satellite link up with me, and we're going to do this thing and have Sarah Evans talk. And she's like, get out of here. So it was my first lesson.
Because she didn't take you seriously?
Yeah, didn't take me seriously at all. And even when U2 set up an account in Belgium, or I'm sorry, Geneva, to pay them, she still didn't take it. She still wouldn't let me do it. It finally took someone from Geneva calling her saying, this is real. You need to do this. Then we started doing them. There was a lot of.
And I'm sorry, was it because of power?
I think it's power because, power. And also she thought I was a goofball, which I was kind of. And, but the moment she found that it was, there's a moment in the book I write about how she gets the phone call from the powers that be that says, you got to do this. And then she gives me the old, come in the hallway and I'm going to talk to you. And she just.
I think I know what you're talking about. Where you said, I'm doing this a personal favor for Bono.
But it became hers. And here's the trick. You asked me a question about adversity. I learned a lot of things doing this. A lot by listening to people say no to me. There's two things I learned. If you really want to, I accomplished this because I was not at the time, I was not the benefactor of I was doing this to get these people heard. So when you said no to me, I'm like, okay, I don't care. I'm going to find another way. I didn't take it personal and get into a tiff with you, which escalates. And then, the mushroom cloud becomes big and then it's ruined. I was like, right. So you're in my way because you have a power problem. I'm going to go around you to another person who has more power and might see it as a different play. So I didn't allow it. I mean, it pissed me off, but I didn't allow it to get inside our ego, which can be destructive. And I just went around them and proposed it to other people and kept moving. That was a really important thing to remember when I was doing this. I said, if I was doing it for me, I think I would have failed. Matter of fact, I would have left. Bono's an incredibly intuitive human being. If I was in that room,
he's a what type of human being? I'm sorry.
He's incredibly intuitive.
Intuitive, okay.
So if I was in that room and he smelled that I was wanting fame or money or whatever, you pick your poison. I'm pretty sure I would have been treated very well, and then that might have been it. But I think he could feel that I was trying to get something done that related to something he believes in. He wanted to, that's the kind of thing he would want to do, or the band would want to do. They would like to shine a light on something that's a wrong, right? And so it became, simpatico, if you want to call it that. And I think the same thing when I went out and got no's all the time, I just kept going around them to people that I knew would, that were feeling the same way as I was. And so I worked with them, or I just kept bouncing around until I found ways to say yes.
The resiliency and the resolve.
Yeah, and just knowing people are doing things for sometimes petty reasons that don't actually have anything to do with your ideas or you. They're just doing it to because of where they are, and you just and there's a part of you needs to acknowledge that inside, like not like in a complex way, but like okay, I get it, I got you, but move around them. Like I get it. I don't, I don't say it out loud, but I'm like, oh right, we're me. It's one of those. Okay, I got you. But I don't have. As a matter of fact, I don't have any ill will. I don't want to hurt them or meaning professionally or like that. I just want to go around them. Um, and so
But it's something that anyone can learn, right? Whether you're young or old, just getting starting out, or even just an idea that you have that is for the greater good of something, right? You don't let roadblocks stop you.
you don't, but you also don't get mad and run over the roadblocks. You kind of find your way. You have to dodge and weave a little bit, and be resilient. And and if you believe in what you're doing, not like in a, I hope not like in a messianic weird, like there's people that believe in stuff that I don't want to believe in, but like if you can see what it's about, if someone can see what it's about, like those people are being killed, and no one actually knows what they look like really or sound like or that they're human. The whole idea that the band and I wanted to do was allow them to speak or laugh or tell a story. And then all of a sudden, all of us who are used to TV, right? TV's packaged, the news is packaged. There's a tragedy. We're going to see a military leader. We're going to see a religious leader. We're going to see some people running. And then we're going to the weather. And in the meantime, you're eating dinner. And so you might feel something during that time, like, well, that's terrible. Oh my God, did you know, Steve, it's going to rain tomorrow? And you're done. You're just done. And it isn't really the news's fault or your fault. It's just how the way it works. And we were going to try to do something extremely old school, which is like PBS, like, okay, talk. And all of a sudden, if you're in the crowd, you're like, well, that guy sounds like he's not crazy or a religious fanatic. He just, you know what I mean? Or that girl or that.
Maybe you might smell a little, but other than that,
Yeah. So it just was intended to be, it's kind of a very analog idea that we were doing with the highest technology that existed in that day. 93 was at the edge of the crack through of really computers that everybody had at home, phones like that. We were just before that. We were just using the technology that would be all of a sudden shrunk and put into a phone. you know,
wow, at times were certainly different then as they are now. But again, I think there's universal truths and themes that I've seen from the book to where we are here in society. So, Bill, I really want to thank you for coming on the podcast. I mean, not only did reading the book made me a better person, but just listening to you today has certainly helped me even more provide perspective and just thought in terms of what if scenarios and just having more awareness in terms of how news gets presented, who are the protagonists, antagonists in this drama that we call life. And more importantly, though, it's how your messaging today can hopefully inspire, educate, entertain, certainly a lot of that to a person that's wanting to, overcome adversity, whether it's bullying or fighting their own inner demons. And so, Bill, I thank you for sharing all of your stories here with me this afternoon, and we will see you soon. Thank you.
thank you.